Ladies and gentlemen, yes, I am Taylor Field, and oh my gosh, have I been waiting ages to get to this review. It has been a busy week, but I am here and I'm so excited to talk about, that's right, Jurassic World, Camp Cretaceous Season 3, ladies and gentlemen. Ooh, okay, so a little bit of housekeeping first. Be sure to check us out on our social media channels and our home base, geekverse.ca. Geekversecast is our Twitter, Geekverse is our Facebook, and then be sure to check us out on our Patreon. Patreon, you can get exclusive ad-free early episodes available, including we're just popping off right now with the Harry Potter retrospective, all 8 films. You can dive into that early. And yeah, there's just a whole bunch of other things that have just been popping off on there. I think coming this week, we have our Quiet Place 2 review. There should be possibly a Cruella review, and we'll have the Conjuring review coming up. The Conjuring Devil Made Me Do It, and a whole bunch more great content is just coming up your way. Newscast weekly, all that sorts of stuff. Be sure to tune in June 5th. We are doing our first, after 7 months, we are all the geeks back in person together for a huge event in honor of a good cause. Basically, it is for the families and children that are back east, just basically hit by the conflict that unfolded over there in Israel. And we're just trying to do an awareness charity, just accept donations, just contribute to a good cause over there, just to help them in their difficult time. So we'll be together on June 5th. We'll be playing some games, probably do some like commentary tracks, just talking with people, having some fun, and just trying to spread the awareness. So if you tune in for that, that would be awesome, and we'll see you there. I think that pretty much does it for my housekeeping, though. So without further ado, I will start off with a little bit of non-spoilers for this season, and then I will break right into these spoilers. Yeah, so I'm just going to say it. The turnaround time for season 3 to drop blew my mind out of the water. I just finished season 2. I feel like a week went by, and it's like, oh, season 3? Boom, that's in like a month. I'm thinking, what the heck? Really? We just got season 2. I'm okay with that. I love that. It makes me wonder if now season 4 is literally like tomorrow. It's just coming up so quick, I bet. So yeah, I'm just ecstatic that the turnaround time was so fast and we got it. And what a series, what a season. It just I wasn't sure, not that it would get repetitive, because they keep putting these characters in new scenarios. And season 2 was great because they didn't dive right into the T-Rex in that first season. They gave us a good amount of it in season 2. And now here we are in season 3, and they don't fall on these crutches that they set for themselves with these dinosaurs and with these plot lines, but they create an ongoing story with mystery in it. And after the cliffhangers of season 2, it dives into that, and this season unfolds with so much development and progression, and it's just exciting. And it had many moments that left me thinking like, oh my God. And emotional moments too. The friendship between these characters, like this is the thing that I love, because you have shows like the Clone Wars that are, sure, they're animated. I know like there's many animated shows out there for kids, but there's a lot of animated shows that are for adults. And yes, I know this is tailored to a kids audience, but this season particularly had so much in it that more older long-term fans of this franchise would catch on to, and so many emotionally developed moments that it would go over a little kid's head for the most part, but you as an adult, you're watching this and you're thinking, oh my God, this is deep, this is heavy. Their relationships have just grown into such powerful things. And I applaud them for tackling so many things that they did in this season. Again, it was very scary. I am going to say the animation is absolutely on point. You can see a huge notable difference between the past 2 seasons and this season. This season, the texture in the face, everything, the detail, it just looks fantastic. I love how they just amped it up. It's like they just were given a green light to use a bigger budget. I'm so happy. But yeah, it's basically just a great progression forward for these characters' storylines and such. So I believe it was 10 episodes for this season, and in 3, 2, 1, I'm going to break it down into it now. So if you haven't seen the show, go check it out. If you have, then hang around and we'll talk good stuff. So at the end of the second season, we dive into the fact that, okay, there's a mysterious new hybrid dinosaur on ice. That being said, it's totally unveiled in this season. The Scorpius Rex. I know Travis loves hybrid dinosaurs, and he'll love that name. The Scorpius Rex. Now, this thing, I just want to dive into it right away because I just think it's a cool concept. And yeah, I know people can kind of crack down on it for its flaws and this and that and this and that. Like, oh, it wouldn't really work, this concept and this. But I think that overall, it's a hybrid dinosaur that is mentally unstable and unpredictable with how it's going to act. You can't get a gauge on it. They put it on ice because it was so unpredictable. It was extremely deadly. It had so many different interesting effects to it, like the spikes, the quills that come off of its tail, and I guess its back too. I love that. I love that it's a carnivore, but it's climbing trees. This thing notably had such distinct resemblances to the lost concept art for the original Jurassic Park 4. I shouldn't say lost concept art, but the old concept art for their initial Jurassic Park 4 pitch, which had human dinosaur hybrids. And I say that because if you look at one of like the T-Rex looking things, I think it was a T-Rex human hybrid, it totally looks similar in its body physique and its stature to the Scorpius Rex in this show. So I feel like there's some inspiration pulled. I'm not saying there is human DNA mixed in that. I don't think they're going anywhere near that in Jurassic World personally. I think they're just going to be tiptoeing on the fact that they clone a human, like from Fallen Kingdom. I think that's the extent of that. No crossing of the two genetic codes. But the moments where it's just like bewildered by the fire and stuff like that, I love that. It's just the fact that it's climbing trees. It's such a interesting dinosaur. It's interesting to see it visually on screen. So I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this hybrid, and I'm glad that they added a new threat onto the island like that, and it wasn't necessarily relying on, the T-Rex again or anything like that. But we learned that they've been stuck here for 6 months, and that totally caught me off guard. Again, we get to see very familiar characters from the franchise, like Blue. That was a moment that actually really made me tear up, was when Blue was chasing them and then got pinned into the car, and the compies showed up, and the compies were trying to like scavenge on Blue, and Darius basically is there and just he's with the others, and the moment where he saves Blue. They push the car up off, and Blue acknowledges that, and the relationship and the way they handle how Darius reacts with Blue, I love it so much. How it's just almost reminiscent of Chris Pratt's Owen Grady, but everything with Blue, like I love Velociraptors. I love Tyrannosaurus Rex. Those are my definite go-tos. I love Ankylosaurus. And Bumpy is just right up that alley. Like I'm not saying I'm like a massive Bumpy fan, but like the ones that protect Bumpy in this season, I love like the big Ankylosaurus. But just back to Blue, when Blue was pinned, it was just that whole scene of it really hits me in the feels, because you have an animal that's so heavily reliant on being social and having a distinct social hierarchy, especially growing up in a pack, and just having it all stripped away and just being alone and isolated. It just, God, it hurts. And it's just, this animal is just alone. Ever since, again, they trickled on that in the Jurassic World, but then when Fallen Kingdom came out, Fallen Kingdom just really hit you in the feels with the Brachiosaurus on the docks, or when Blue was crying and just in so much pain, suffering on the table when they were pulling the bullet out of her. Like, there's just so many moments where these poor goddamn creatures they don't have control for the world around them necessarily, and humanity just keeps messing with them. I'm not tearing up right now, ladies and gentlemen, I swear. But you feel for these creatures, you really, really do. And I really feel for Blue, and this season definitely made me feel really, really bad for her. But we got redemption because she came in, she saved the squad, and she went toe to toe with the Scorpius Rex. Blue is literally 3 for 3 on the hybrid front. She is popping off toe to toe with the Indominus Rex, toe to toe with the Scorpius Rex, and then just dances with the Indoraptor. Like, freaking unbelievable. This Blue is like an all-time like fierce #1 contender right now, like absolutely legendary. So Yeah, I love how that Blue's story develops in this. What else do we have? The characters here. So Yasmina and Sammy. Now we got growth of their relationship in this season, but I cannot believe how in depth they went with it. When Sammy got whacked by the Scorpius Rex and was suffering and was leading to death because of the poison from its quill, and Yasmina just treks through hell and back, manages to outrun the Scorpius Rex to go to Dr. Wu's secret lab, gets the serum to basically antidote Sammy and save her. Just the flashbacks of her trying to reach back to Sammy was just right in the feels, and just everything she overcame was so heavy and passionate and just so astounding for the relationship and how they grew from being just acquaintances to not really being on board with each other to just being like the best friends. And it wasn't done in a cheesy, corny way at all. It's just like, this is unbelievable. And the progression was just ecstatic. Like I can't believe it. It was awesome. And your heart pours for the character, but she manages to save Sammy, and I'm super, super glad about that. On that note, though, well, I guess actually we'll touch upon that later. Kenji has a lot of interesting developments, but again, that'll be later point. Ben, though, it's interesting with his character because he goes through such a shift of like thriving on this island and being the new persona that he is to just loving Bumpy and not wanting to leave, and how it's turned him into who he is now. To just totally 180ing and going along the route of just, hey, get me off the island, and he tries to catch up with them at the end when he wanted to initially stay. Again, we know this is 6 months since the fall of Jurassic World, so I think that confirms something because, well, I'll get to that later because they did a very cool crossover scenario with something, and I wasn't expecting it, but it got me so excited, so pumped, because I love alternate perspectives in shows, and this did not fail with that whatsoever. Brooklyn, she went through some good developments as well in her character, along with Sammy, when they were going out basically to study what was really going on, and they learn about the Scorpius Rex. Right off the hop with the Scorpius Rex, this thing is jumping from Parasaurolophus. Am I saying that right? Parasaurolophus. Just jumping from dino to dino in the woods. It was just terrifying how this thing moves. It's so quick. Yeah, so their development grows, which is very nice. Darius, again, is just turning into such an awesome character. I love how he's cataloged these dinosaurs, and he gets to have the moment with the Gallimimus in honor of his father. That very much hits right in the feels. I really, really like it. So what else do I bounce off of here? I don't remember any Mosasaur stuff. There was a lot of compy stuff. I really appreciate the nod to where they're talking about the original owner. And basically, Brooklyn is talking about how the original owner, I believe, was died, killed by compies, or injured and then eaten alive by compies. And Darius is like, no, he died old and healthy, or not old and healthy. He died old and comfortable in his bed, like they showed in the Lost World Jurassic Park, the second one. So them talking about John Hammond being injured and eaten alive by compies, again, that is a shout out to the Jurassic Park novel, which actually is how his character dies. And I think that was an awesome nod. We get several other references of like Kenji saying clever boy, and Darius like girl. It's a girl. Kenji's like clever girl. I love that line. That's a good shout out. There were so many other moments that made me feel like it was like reminiscent of Jurassic Park 3 with the sail and everything like that. I love those Easter eggs. And it's not just crammed or slammed in there either. They put these things in and it just feels like subtle, stands off on its own, but you can tell there is a aesthetic reminiscent of the usage of it in the other parts of the franchise. And I love that because it all feels unique, but it all feels like it ties back to home. I love that so very much. Again, we got Jurassic Park put back in here. Whenever characters are at Jurassic Park and that old score clicks in, it does it for me. I get goosebumps, I get chills, I just love it. And again, in this show, when Darius shows up there and the score kicks in and it's just like those doors to Jurassic Park, it's just so magical because it's like this was a legendary age, a legendary film, and it's just left in ruin here. And I love it. It's so cool. It is sad in Fallen Kingdom that they've just bloody well melted it in lava and explosion, but what are you gonna do? What else? Yeah, just exploring that was super cool. We did get a reminiscent, and this was definitely very spot on in terms of things being reminiscent of the original franchise films. Them doing the kitchen scene, I'll give them that. Like, that was definitely a super hit on the target. But again, I loved it. I thought it was awesome when the Scorpius Rex is like blinking through the window. All the kids are down there at the end of the hall where the, Lex and Tim were. And then it just breaks through the door without a care in the world and goes after them. I love that so much. It was awesome. The thing, though, that we learn, and this is what caught me insanely off guard, is there are 2 Scorpius Rex. When throughout this whole show, they've been basically repairing and trying to get the boat back up and running. Issues with that. I know they're kids, but I really dislike how they wasted time having a boat party. I feel like they should have prepped everything they could into the boat, hunkered inside the boat as best they could, waiting for the adhesive to patch up on the hole. Yeah, I think about that a lot, and it just leaves me dumbfounded that I feel like it's easy to think from a survivalist point of view outside. And I know they're kids and they're just trying to live it up. But yeah, it just kind of baffled me. I do think that, again, 2 Scorpius Rex, when Darius and Ben were running back trying to get to the boat and the other characters left, and we see the 2 Scorpius Rexes and basically they're fighting and Darius and Ben are trapped in the limo. I love that the limo was thrown up against a tree. It felt very reminiscent of Tim and Dr. Alan Grant getting out of the tree, basically with the car, the Ford coming down on them. I think it was a Ford. The SUV looking thing. Yeah, I think that was super cool. The idea of them trying to fix the boat, I thought was awesome. I love how they were scavenging different supplies. And we learned there was a little bit more to like Kenji's backstory with his father, particularly. He's an insanely rich man, as you learn. Him going to their private residence, I thought it was interesting because you had these other dinos. I can't remember their name, but they were sneaking around through the vents trying to kill them and get to them, which I thought was a very cool, like, spooky little thing. But them wasting so much time in that room, like, it should have just got the stuff and got out, because there was clearly a lot of supplies in there. But again, I like that sequence. I thought it was fun, enjoyable, and you get to learn more about Kenji trying to stand up for himself, which segues later on when he's just to organize the supplies to pack up for the boat. He grows into that role more, so much that him and Darius have a very interesting dynamic later on, which we will get to after this ad break. So you have, what else here? Yeah, the boat. Them trying to repair the boat to get away. And the boat was left over from season 2. Basically, the other 2 characters there. Now we have an interesting scenario because, well, actually, I'm going to point another con here. I know I'm kind of bouncing all over the place. I'm going to point out another con. I love the story development, and I understand the first few episodes got us to where we needed to go, but I felt like 10 episodes was probably a little too long for this. I think that they didn't need to necessarily dance around the Scorpius Rex for as long as they did. I feel like they could have gotten into it a lot quicker. And I don't think it would have harmed anything in terms of like the development in the show. But I feel like we were maybe like 2 episodes too long. And I know I'm used to the 8 episode run usually for this show. But I think 8 episodes would have been perfect for this, because after we got past the Scorpius Rex thing when they killed both of them and we moved along and it segued to the next scenario, I feel like that was very prolonged. Again, I loved it because it was like, okay, now we're back into the nitty-gritty deep part of this, which leads to Kenji not liking that Brooklyn was used, basically, and her life was gambled by Darius, because they were basically, when they were about to sail away on their boat out off to the mainland, helicopters arrive and say, dock the boat, dock the boat. So the kids dock the boat. This I love. A helicopter landed and got some of the kids on board. One guy was still on the ground, and then the T-Rex comes. And the T-Rex scene, like going after the helicopter, was so awesome. I loved it out the yin-yang. It was so good. And basically, the kids get separated. So I believe you have Sammy, you have Ben and Kenji on the helicopter. In Brooklyn, Yasmina and Darius were on the ground still. So basically, they realize, okay, after they escape the T-Rex, after a crazy scenario with Yasmina gets away from the T-Rex, it was insane. They find a helicopter that lands, and sure enough, Dr. Wu gets out, and he's trying to get his research. And we get a lot of mentions here of Fallen Kingdom, I can't remember the guy's name from Fallen Kingdom, but the guy organizing everything basically for the auction. So Dr. Wu is here because he's trying to get information from his lab, and he's got the laptop he needs to get. So he goes off with the guy, and he's got to get information from his laptop and his lab. The kids realize, okay, we got to go and get the laptop before he does to wipe the information. So they go off and they get the laptop. They're going to wipe the info, and then they have to eventually, Darius realizes, okay, we're going to have to make a trade here, because these Dr. Wu and his henchmen know now that there's kids here, and they took the laptop and they gambled with Brooklyn's life. And Kenji, in a complete turn of his character, just is so, he's holding a lot back against Darius for gambling with his friend's life. And I like that. I think it fits with his character development. It fits with the progression of the story. And Darius was just willing to brush it off, but Kenji couldn't. And it just goes to show how affected Kenji is with what happens to his friends now. I think it's very powerful. So I thought it was great. But yeah, like I said, this leads to, as you guessed it, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Basically, Dr. Wu doesn't manage to get his laptop. He gets out of there, though, with one of his henchmen. You get to see the kids running up to the main center area. Now, this is where, again, we learn this is 6 months after Jurassic World that they went for the Indominus Rex bone. And then we learn that 4 years later, I believe it was, is when the island erupts. So I don't remember that in the movie being properly disclosed from the beginning to the end, or to the beginning to the part where the volcano erupts, but I'm glad this clarifies it now. So again, you see from the kid's perspective, this guy running with the T-Rex chasing behind him. And it's just like in the movie, and the rain's pouring down, the storm, everything is crazy. The animation looks so good. Basically, the guy's running, and they're like, oh, he got away. And he's on the helicopter, and you're like, oh no, that mosasaur, he's jumping out, or she's jumping out of that water. And she does, and that poor bloody guy. The helicopter gets away, though, with the Indominus Rex piece. And Dr. Wu almost spills the beans to the kids, actually, about that, too. But you get a little sense of compassion from Dr. Wu in this, but he puts his research over it all, because the kids almost kind of enlighten him to a certain degree. But they're fighting for the fact that more people will die if they continue this research, and they just can't allow it. Another thing I really wanted to shout out was, I love when Bumpy was inside the pack of Ankylosaurus, and the Scorpius Rex was trying to get in, and just it can't penetrate through their armor on top, and they're just like swinging their tails. It was such a badass scene. I loved how they protected Bumpy. It was so good, so awesome. Yeah, the score, freaking tastic. After the whole ordeal with the helicopters and such, like the one helicopter actually that Kenji, Sammy, and Ben were all on, the pilot was freaking out, and there were pteranodons and such that came in, and dimorphodons, I believe, and they were coming out the helicopter, and Ben's like, turn the lights off, I got experience with this, and the pilot's like, you nuts, but she agrees. She turns the lights off, and they veer off, And I loved how she was just kind of flabbergasted and like, wow, I'm sorry I doubted you. Needless to say, she wasn't looking where she was going. And this scene was sad but humorous. This Brachiosaurus was all alone with its head out above the tree line, and the pilot turns and freaks out and steers the helicopter over, and they end up crashing. And the Brachiosaurus kind of like turns its head and then turns back and is like, ooh, like really, really, really funny. I love that. Again, my last nod, because I just reminded myself of it, the cow noises. Kenji was doing so many of that, and that's a great nod to Alan Grant doing it. I loved it so very, very much. Again, this show had so many great ties to the franchise. It was not overdone. The characters were amazing. The dinosaurs were absolutely awesome. I didn't mind the hybrids in this whatsoever. I think it fit with the story. It came to a nice, concise, conclusive ending for them. And again, we have the characters that escaped, and they managed to get on the boat and get away. But if we remember in season 2, there were baryonyx that were on that boat. So again, they've made so many other escape attempts, I will swear, but this is the boat that they landed on to repair to get out. It'll be very interesting to see how season 4 unfolds, because if these characters truly are trapped, it's gonna be nuts for them stuck on the ocean with baryonyx trying to get out through the bottom door of the ship. And I freaking can't wait. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say though on this show. I can't recommend it enough. Like, definitely tune in. It'll blow your mind how things progress for these characters and the storyline in general. It's just such a good time. Yeah, I think that does it. That's it. Thank you for taking this stroll. 65 million years. So yeah, until next time, I'm Taylor. Thank you for joining me on this quick half an hour-ish review for Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous Season 3. And until next time, we'll see you in the search bar. Have a good one.